All right, we are doing another episode of RPG Horror Stories. Hopefully, my voice doesn't go to shit. Hi, everybody. Davey here back again. We're doing another episode of RPG Horror Story slash GM advice and, just general RPG advice. Got a couple stories for you today. And today's first one was on Reddit, and it's, are my perceptions off or does my DM hate me? Post starts, let me start by committing to you that I respect the game master role and the rulings, full stop. However, internally, I don't always agree or align philosophically with their rulings. With this in mind, it's also important for context to share that my D&D 5e group's DM is a bit eccentric. Just to start off, completely okay to disagree with your DM on rulings or maybe the philosophy, I can't talk, on how they're running the game. Perfectly okay. Don't be afraid to talk to them about it. To continue though, they are well-meaning and genuine, but are also one of those rare types of people who tend to take things the wrong way on a consistent basis. Sometimes people don't take criticism well, understandable, but also, if you're DMing, always be open to criticism, specifically constructive. It is a usual occurrence where all the players around the table are not in agreement about a basic party decision, and the DM is like, whoaing us, because they assume something nefarious is in the works. But before you answer to find a new group, let me say that the players are all excellent friends, and we've been gaming together in this campaign weekly for over 6 years, accepting these dynamics. Something that's not being noted so far is maybe potentially there's a couple power gamers in the group who are pulling some nefarious shenanigans that's throwing the DM for a loop. And so when stuff is kind of going on, sometimes they're like, oh shit, wait, what's going on here? What are you doing? Or sometimes the players plan for things that a DM's not ready for, and it throws them for a loop. And sometimes DMs don't handle that sort of improv very, very well. However, at this week's game, my PC was killed in the middle of Mortal Kombat, 0 HP, but ready to make death saving throws a la 5e 2014 Raw. Wait, so they were killed? Okay, so normally, like a killing blow, no death save sort of thing is when you take your max HP after 0. So if your max HP is 10 and you're let's say you're at 1 health left and you take 11 points of damage, that takes you to 1 to 0, and then the other 10 hits your max, you're dead. No death saves. So that's worded a little weird, but let's continue. It was my turn in the initiative order, immediately following the blow that killed my PC. I feel like this is blow that downed my PC, not killed. I think they're wording a little off. And I was told that I cannot make a death saving throw until next round. Okay, so they're not dead. They're just making death saves. They're unconscious. Okay. Luckily, a fellow PC poured a potion of superior healing down my throat in the following round before my turn. I was back in the fight, but then my DM ruled that I wake up with 2 levels of exhaustion that would only improve after a long rest. Okay, true about exhaustion. You lose it every long rest you take, unless you have like tea or some bullshit that gets rid of it. In parentheses, and of course, we had recently long rested, so we weren't allowed to do so again for a while, at least until next session. Okay, this sounds like the player had this sprung up on them and were not ready for this. So it sounds like the DM is either just making up ways that they're changing up the game, which I don't agree with, because this is something big. Levels of exhaustion do a lot of negatives to you, especially when you're taking more than one. Some games, like one of the ones I currently DM, we do, if the character goes down, you come back up. So you don't die, you go unconscious basically. You come back up, you will have a level of exhaustion. And the reason we mainly did that is we wanted to, one, make the game a little bit more difficult, because a lot of the times we run high fantasy, and like high magic, so they usually have a lot of healing potions on them, and they also tend to have either multiple PCs or they have a healer in the party who has like healing. And so a lot of the characters, if they go down, sometimes you get these fights where the characters are up and down, like one of those clown toys, those little clown toys that you could punch and it like goes down and comes back up, it swings around. So to make it a little bit more difficult, we did add that in because it was weird. Some fights where you would have like a character go down like 8 times and be getting upped every single time and be like, I'm ready to go. And then they get hit, and the next one they come back up because somebody, dropped some, potion down their throat, or somebody healing worded them or something. So we did that to kind of make it a little more difficult. But this is something that needs to be talked about with the players and their entire party before it's done. And it sounds like the DM sprung this up on him. Now, this potentially could be an okay thing if they kind of gave some sort of in-lore reason. So let's say they were fighting an enemy that, let's say, was like sucking the soul out of you when you like went down or something. Like there's some weird magic that made it like, so when you went down, it like hurt extra because, it was consuming your soul or, really draining your life out of you or something. Like it wasn't just like, oh, you got hit with a sword and you went down. It was like this scene was like sucking the life out of you. And it sounds like that they didn't explain that. And so hopefully that's what they were aiming for. But this is definitely something you need to talk about with your players, just so that doesn't happen. Post continues though. I should probably also share more about how my character was killed several months ago after interacting with an alien device that resulted in my immediate electrocution style death, for which I was not allowed to make death saves and could only be brought back from a pocket dimension by my fellow PCs after they found a solution, which took about 4 weeks worth of session, and during which I didn't attend the game because there wasn't anything I was allowed to do. I didn't complain and rolled with it, but it wasn't fun, and I let him know it was not a fun part of the game for me personally. Okay, couple things here. It sounds like the DM really needs to kind of set some expectations here about how things are going to go. What we don't know about this electrocution style death with a trap is maybe there's a chance the DM was like, hey, all this stuff here looks super duper deadly, like don't touch it. I am open to the idea of having traps that insta kill, but you need to make sure you're communicating that to the players in some way. Now, if your players are being fucking stupid and they're just like, I run up and hit the big red button when they walk into a room, yeah, maybe actions have consequences, but you should kind of try to be setting the scene here where you'll be like, you're in this alien room, you see, all these very weird, potentially deadly things. It's very, unexpected and alien to you. And maybe if they're like, I'm investigating the room, but you see like, oh, you try to like drip feed the idea as they're moving through like an area that maybe the stuff in here could potentially result in really immediately bad things other than like I take some damage. So it sounds like it's a lack of communication here. It sounds like the DM needs to kind of sit down and talk about what is going to happen and what expectations there are for the campaign. To finish off the post, though, it says, so my question is this. With that context in mind, does this sound unnecessarily harsh or even odd to you, or are my perceptions off? Thanks in advance. I think it could be a mix of the two. I do think it's a little harsh. And I don't know if it's the DM doesn't feel like they're challenging the players enough, so they're immediately cranking things up to make them more difficult, where like, oh, this player went down. I'm going to punish them for going down without having like talked about this beforehand. Or on top of that, player perceptions could also just be off, either because the DM's not describing the scene to them correctly, or they are not asking enough questions potentially when they're going into a room, and maybe they're just doing things, off the cuff that are potentially just really bad from, sometimes players go into a room, they see that red button, they hit the red button, and there's consequences. It sounds like this player potentially, I would go to the DM in this situation if I was them. And I go, hey, I noticed these couple things happen here. And it does sound like they've been communicating with them a bit, but it's like, hey, I noticed that like, I took 2 levels of exhaustion here. Is there like a reason for that? Be it in lore that maybe wasn't explained properly, or I just didn't pick up on, or, are we changing the rules here and not saying something? It doesn't sound necessarily like this DM is targeting them, but we also have not heard if this is the only person it's happening to. It also could be that this player just does dumb shit and they're being punished for it. It could be either or. Other thing I would like to note about this, a player missing 4 weeks of sessions because their character died is not fun. I love the idea of somebody dies, only way to save them is going to a weird pocket dimension. A weird arc to save a PC, super cool idea. During that time frame though, that DM needed to find a way to get that player back in playing, going, hey, we're gonna, if you want to play this, continue playing this character, they can go and get this stuff done. Well, let's get a temporary character in here for you, and then find a way to shoehorn it in, you know, be it like the player's like, okay, we got to go to this pocket dimension. So let's, you know, we got to go talk to a guy. We're going to go meet a guy at a tavern. And this guy has a MacGuffin. We need to get into the pocket dimension. And when they're in there, you know, maybe that guy goes, oh, it's dangerous to go alone. Here, take Fabio. And they hand off this player's temporary PC to him, who like goes in with them temporarily, you know, or they hire somebody to go in with them. Or maybe, there's a party member who's like, let's say a cleric or a paladin to a god or goddess. And that god or goddess is like, oh, snap. Here, my devoted follower, you're working to get somebody who is help furthering my wants and my needs and whatnot. Here, let me bestow a boon upon you. Here's a temporary ally. You know, that PC, this temp PC comes in then, is able to play for those 4 weeks until they get that player back. Losing out on that time is not fun. And hopefully the DM learns from the player kind of letting them know about it and complaining, but noting that they didn't enjoy that. But that's not something that should happen. You should not have to suffer as a player for multiple weeks on end because your PC died. Like the DM needs to find a way to go, cool, I'm going to get you back into this. Let's get you into this. Our second story is a little bit shorter and not so much of a story. So this ended up on the RPG Horror subreddit. Didn't really belong though, but I thought it was very interesting and kind of wanted to talk about it. So the title is RPG, and this person says, I'm starting to play RPG with some friends. Maybe English isn't their best language here, or they're a bot. I hope they're not a bot. But I'm very shy inside and outside the game. However, I wanted to let loose and have fun and laughter at the table. This sounds kind of AI. God, I hope it's an AI. I never know what to say. It feels like my head goes dark, and it gets worse when someone is theorizing and I can't follow their train of thought. I feel like an idiot. Do you have any tips on how I can develop myself or how to be more creative? I already consume a lot of nerd media, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like it enough. I assume that means I don't know. It doesn't seem like it is enough. I'm going to assume, I know it's talking about AI or a bot. Hopefully they're not. I'm going to assume English is not their first language here. English is not easy to learn. Now, not an RPG horror story, definitely on their own subreddit, but I thought it would be interesting to talk about, and I thought it would be a good topic to broach. And also, people were super sweet, even though this was posted in the wrong place to them. I won't read comments, but people in the comments, I gotta say, good job, internet. You were really nice to this person. Issues being kind of funny at the table or creative and kind of like learning how to play and all that. It does take time. So as like, if you are a new person playing an RPG, one, just know it takes time to kind of develop that skill set to be creative and to get the juices flowing and to be comfortable playing an RPG. And it can be that way because you're learning the system. It could be that way because you're just learning to play tabletop RPGs with a group of people. It could be that way because you're playing with a new group of people. It happens. Give yourself that grace and just be comfortable with the fact that it's going to take you some time to get comfy. And that as you continue to play that, you will get better. Another thing, other people at the table might be being funny, cracking jokes, doing weird stuff, being super creative. It's not a competition. It's perfectly okay to not be the most creative. It's okay to not be the funniest person. Not everybody has to be a comedian. And part of like what makes being funny work is in comedy, they call it the straight man. So for every funny person, there's usually a straight man, quote unquote, in this situation. And I don't mean like a heterosexual man. It's a person that's not meant to be funny. It's the outsider looking at this absolutely weird situation going on, and they're like the normal person viewing it. And that's what can make it funny. So sometimes it's okay to be the straight man, quote unquote, in this situation, just because it allows that funny person to excel. One thing you can do if you're a little uncomfortable and you're trying to get comfy and you're a little more comfortable talking with your GM or players, is you could always go, hey, to your GM or your players, ask them like, hey, how do you get comfortable with your character? How do you get the juices flowing? How do you kind of do what you do to come up with these creative solutions? That's one thing you could do. You know, you could ask your GM, like, hey, I'm trying to get comfortable playing this. Is there a chance, like, something that lines up with my backstory or something you can kind of like softball it? Not even like a major plot point for my backstory, but just something that I can kind of like work with here to kind of get comfortable and get in the game. A couple things that I would recommend for like when you're initially getting comfy with your character, outside of just knowing like, hey, it takes time, you know, be knowing that the other players with you, especially if you're just starting a campaign, they are all going to be uncomfortable as well with their characters. They may be comfortable with each other, but when you're first playing a PC, like a character, you are still kind of, even though you have a backstory and maybe you've got flaws and ideals and bonds and all that, you're still kind of figuring out, okay, I've got this idea for my character. You know, they're a tiefling warlock. Maybe their skin's orange. They've got blue eyes. You know, I want them to be happy-go-lucky, even though like they're being haunted by this devil that they made a pact with to get their power. You know, you're still trying to figure out, how does that character look? How do they act? How does it work? And then your character kind of changes too, depending on how the other PCs are kind of acting with you and what they do, and you kind of ping-pong off each other. And it takes time to get there, and it takes time to get comfortable and figure out what is my character, what do they do. Some stuff you can do is you can ask, you know, who am I? You know, let's continue off of like, I am Gregory, the orange-skinned, blue-eyed tiefling warlock who sold their soul to a devil to try to, you know, get some power to defend my village, let's say. You know, and then like when a situation crops up, let's say, you know, your PC, you know, Gregory, the tiefling here, sold their soul to a devil because their village was being attacked by bandits. And, you know, they cried out, you know, will anyone please help me? You know, I need the power to stop these evildoers. You know, and this devil showed up and was like, yeah, sure, I can help you. Sign here, sign on the dotted line. And you got a D10 cantrip, you know, you got Eldritch Blast. So, you know, what would my character just, you know, how would my character see the situation? So how would Gregory, the orange-skinned, blue-eyed warlock tiefling, see the situation? You know, say your characters run into, not necessarily bandits, but let's say some guards who are bullying some common folk, you know, some peasants on the road who are just trying to like roll their carriage along. And there's a set of guards who are kind of like giving them shit, going through all their stuff. Maybe they're trying to shake them down for money. You know, what would my character do in this situation? Would my character go, hey, you should leave him alone? You know, would my character stand up? Because maybe Gregory would in this situation. He stood up to these bandits in the backstory by selling his soul to a devil to get a D10 cantrip. You know, would my character try to intimidate them? Violence is another option, of course, and I feel like a lot of PCs tend to jump to violence. It's an RPG, combat's fun, you know, but how would my character see the situation? Would my character look at these guards shaking down these peasants and go, they're being bullies, screw that, I'm not going to let that happen. You know, am I goody two shoes? Am I going to try to do the better? And then you ask yourself, what can be done? Could you barter with them? Be like, hey, you know, you really shouldn't, you know, just if you'll like stop heckling them, like, here, I'll pay their toll. I'll pay the fare for them to get through. You know, will you intimidate them? You go to the guards and go like, listen, if you don't leave these peasants alone, you know, maybe I, you know, light up some purplish energy in my hand, you know, for like, that's like me prepping my Eldritch Blast, quote unquote, and be like, if you don't leave them alone, you know, I'm going to strike you down, or I'm going to make you regret it, you know, or I'll sell your, you know, I'll, you know, gather your soul for my patron or something. You know, you can try to intimidate, or, you know, the violence option. A lot of players like to do the violence option, and I'm not going to judge on it. I sometimes pick the violence option when I'm a PC. You know, and you just Eldritch Blast immediately and roll into combat. I'm sure your DM will love it. Just do that. But that's a couple things you can do to kind of get comfortable with your character and figure out what can be done and what your character would do and kind of get yourself in that mindset. Biggest things though, it takes time. You know, give yourself that grace to get comfortable. Realize it's not a competition. Don't compare yourself to other people. You all are bringing something different to the table. So it's perfectly okay in this situation to be that quote unquote straight man to the funny man kind of thing. You know, and as long as you're having fun and your friends are having fun with you at the table, I mean, that's the most important thing. is that everybody's having fun. And there's other ways you can contribute than being the funny creative man. Take super good notes, you know? Because let me tell you, some people don't take good notes, and maybe they're spending more time being creative, coming up with creative solutions, or they're trying to be funny, so they're not taking notes. And suddenly when you're, 18 sessions in and your DM goes and drops some mini little hint, and the piece, your friend's like, shit, I don't remember what that is. You can go, yo, wait. In my notes here, you might recall this. There was this thing that happened. You're a lifesaver. You're allowing the RP to continue, the story to continue. The DM's not going to be stuck in a situation where like, oh crap, how do I drop a hint that this person should be getting, but they didn't write good enough notes, and now they're not. Everybody has their own way of contributing. So don't be discouraged if you're not the funny one or the most creative one. And it'll come to you in time. Everybody's going to have their time in the spotlight. All right, everybody, that is going to be it for this week. Thank you guys all for hanging out and spending some time with me. What were your thoughts, though, on either of these, stories or situations? Do you think in that story about the DM potentially hating that character and that player, do you think they were? Do you think it's a situation where the DM just wasn't explaining things enough? Or do you think the DM's just changing rules? Let me know down in those comments. While you're down there, too, let me know. How do you get into character? How do you try to get yourself ingrained into the world in the RP? Do you, kind of try to view it from their situation? Do you just do whatever, kind of be like the chaotic one and just, be the chaotic little goblin? Let me know down in those comments. But thank you guys all for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I had fun getting to make it and kind of talk about it with you guys and give my thoughts and opinions. But that's going to be it for me. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye, everybody.